third speaker is Tim, giving a speech called What's a Speech? Let's welcome Tim.
What's a speech? What's a speech? Now, as you were here several weeks ago, you know there are three things. People tend to think what speeches are. And when I asked that question about several weeks ago, there were three answers. And one person said, Tim, speech is a presentation. Presentation. Which means, if you've been through presentations, you know kind of how they work. Shut up, watch the PowerPoint. Shut up, watch the PowerPoint. Fred, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you're at Deloitte, I'm at Deloitte too. That's kind of how it works. Now, if you haven't been to these sort of meetings, here's a presentation meeting. You sit there, and you try to stay awake in this half-dimmed room as things are going on, and you look at this screen up there, and it's either so filled with information you can't possibly read it all if you wanted to, or there's so little information on, the speaker's got nothing else to do than to read it line by line by line by line. What I'm talking about too. A presentation. So once a speech is a presentation. Another person said, no, a speech isn't a presentation. A speech is more a performance. So in other words, a speech is more like a circus. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the greatest speaking on earth. And you've got a kind of a clown act going on over here, and people are juggling and doing the changes of the costumes. Performance. And maybe you've seen those sort of speakers. You go through and you've got this big performance going on stage. Just really exciting and interesting. You're thinking, wow, that's really great. It's engaging. It gets my attention. A performance. Yet another person said, no, Tim, a speech isn't really a presentation or performance. A speech is much more about your point. You want to push your point on the audience until they get it. So you just keep hammering the audience over and over and over with your point. Believe, believe, believe. That is a speech. And I used to think that a speech was one of those things. Presentation, performance, or a point. Until several years ago, I had a mentor who told me of a different way to look at speeches. And it transformed my approach to speeches. And today you're going to learn about, or relearn about, that method. You're going to find out about that speech actually is something you quickly and easily can create. Engaging the audience, and it'll become more comfortable you being up here, and you'll get a process for working through that. And it all started because I had to give a speech. You've been in that situation before? Probably have. That's why you're here. So I had to give a speech. So I went to my mentor, Bob. Now, do you have a mentor or somebody you go to for advice? Yeah, Marty does. Good. Some other people may have some. My guy is Bob. Now, Bob is a medium height guy. Been in Toastmasters forever, professional speaker. He knows what he's talking about. So I asked Bob, I said, Bob, I've got this speech coming up, and I can't figure out, should I make it a presentation or a performance, or maybe just pound them with my point? Tim, speech is not about presentation, performance, and certainly don't pound anybody with your point. Bob, what are you talking about? I mean, that's what a speech is. It's one of those three. I'm just trying to figure out which one. No, that's not a speech at all. Okay, Bob, then what is a speech? Bob said something I'd never heard before that transformed my approach to speeches, made it much simpler to do speeches, and really helped me understand what a speech was really all about. He said, Tim, a speech is simply a conversation with your audience. Speech is a conversation with your audience. So when you're giving a speech, all you have to do is create a conversation. Create a conversation. That's it. All you have to do. Create that conversation with your audience. About now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, Tim. I mean, conversation requires back and forth, right? Somebody's got to talk, and somebody listens, and somebody else talks, and somebody else listens, and maybe they don't listen as much as you want them to, and maybe somebody does all the talking. That happens too. There's got to be some degree of back and forth. And I had the same question for Bob. I said, Bob, wait a minute. How can a speech be a conversation if I'm the one doing the talking and the audience is out there doing the listening? Tim, a speech is a conversation because every time you're talking, the audience is thinking something. You talk, the audience thinks. You talk, the audience thinks something. As long as you get out of the way and let them think, that conversation goes on. So right now, you might be thinking, and I'm not a mind reader, so I don't know what you're thinking, but you might be thinking, Tim, I don't buy it. I don't think there's mind reading, and I don't think that there's a conversation going on. Or maybe you're thinking, I get it. I think this is a conversation. There's some sort of recall and response going on here. But whatever it is you're thinking, there's some thought, some idea going through your mind while talking. And that's the process of the speech. Speaker talks, the audience thinks. As long as you allow the audience to think, get out of the way, things are a lot simpler. So once I understood that, I went back to that old problem of speaking, figuring out what to talk about, what speeches to give. It became a lot easier because I only had to do half the work. Half the work. All I do is do the talking, and then the audience does the other half. Big thing is to get out of the way. So when you're giving a speech, any sort of a speech, that you're trying to get people engaged, you're tempted to go through things and think of it as maybe a presentation. You've got the PowerPoint slides up there, you're all ready to go. Or maybe it's a performance. You want to do your best Barnum and Bailey act out there. Maybe you're thinking you just want to pound them with their point until they beg for mercy. Step back and think of it a different way. Instead, think about creating a conversation. When you go up there, you're talking, create a conversation with the audience, let the audience speak.